Arrested Development, season 5. Whew. Okay, so we're to start with Arrested Development. What's your relationship with Arrested Development?
Uh, yeah, God, thinking about Arrested Development in 2019, spoilers is kind of going to be like the whole topic, I think. But the first
Yeah.
3 seasons, this what 03 to 06 or whatever it was on Fox
Mhm.
before it got canceled. Like, I think anyone who knew of Arrested Development back then loved the show, and definitely thought it was ahead of its time, in
Mhm.
terms of callbacks and meta references, and obviously it's quite the meme factory now. But it was just like a really smart, obviously hilarious comedy that existed within the studio 30-minute space, right? And I got to it late. I didn't get to it. Obviously, I was too young to really watch a show like that when it was on at the time, but I watched it on Netflix like tons of people did, in lead up to the fourth season that came out in
Mhm.
2013. And that definitely was underwhelming to, I think, almost everyone who saw it. The issue with that is that, coming back to 2013, the casts are all more famous and they can't all record in this shoot in the same time. So they
Mhm.
made that choice. Hurwitz made that choice to shoot bigger character driven episodes, and it was a swing, and it definitely missed. But I mean, he tried, I guess, to put out more of the show. But yeah, looking back, if we never got season 4, season 5, and the show was just like a meme, that Obama, please bring it back. Like if we didn't have these
Yeah.
last 2 seasons, I don't think anyone would cry. But it's a weird story, man. There's a lot to it. What's your relationship with the
Mhm.
show, though, or past or present?
Yeah, similar to yours. I was like tangentially aware of it. My siblings definitely watched it. I'm pretty sure my brother is a fan of the show, and he was watching it when it was on TV. But I was like, yeah, Arrested Development. I think it was on Fox, and I remember coming on like right around when The Simpsons would come on Sundays, and I was like, who watches this? Like, I couldn't really understand it at the time. Watching it in, well, I probably came around in 2010, 2011, sometime like that, with good friend of the show Sean McKenna, just blown away by the writing. It's one of the most well written shows maybe of all time. Just like you mentioned the meta references, but just like there's layers to their jokes, especially by like season 3 where they're calling back to things that happened in episode like 2 of the series, but there's like 3 different jokes tied to it now, and somehow it all makes sense and it all feels uh like it's held together even as they're like upping the ante on these like ridiculous scenarios. um it's absurd by the end of it. But man, getting to these more recent seasons, you mentioned season 4, swing and a miss. Season 5, the first half was dropped sometime last year. Is that
Yeah,
right?
we never got to it. It dropped in
So
May, and like I know I was
yeah.
away, and then by the time we could have talked about it, Kanye had dropped, Pusha T and Drake were beefing. Like, there's a lot of other stuff going on, and
Yeah.
the buzz was muted, so we never really
Mhm.
addressed it. In fact, I don't even think I was aware of these second batch of season 5 episodes until recently. But yeah,
Yeah, it's disappointing. I think there's 2 parts of it to me. First of all, like it definitely seemed like it still struggled with people not being able to all be together. Now it was more cohesive than season 4 for sure, but I think Portia de Rossi's sparing use in the season was very evident. I think the second in these last episodes you see her maybe like twice, and um seems like she really got sidelined, but also it just felt so, I don't know, tonally off in a sense. I'm not really sure exactly how to describe it, but it just didn't seem to capture the magic that they had in those first 3 seasons. Even though like the absurdity and the scenarios were kind of there, it almost felt like it got a little too far from the core in a
Hmm.
sense. And they do come back together as a family by the end of it, but it's just this feeling like these ridiculous scenarios in the past always felt just hilarious and ridiculous, and now it just felt like what's going on? Like, is it Oscar? Is it George Senior? Like, I really just like started to almost get confused with some of it at points. So I don't know. It was disappointing, but still, I ride for the show. Like they could put out season 6, I'm still gonna watch it. I think the writing is so clever, and they still have some hysterical moments, which I definitely want to get to. But give me your opinion of season 5, the second batch.
Yeah, I think it's just the fastball is just off a little bit. It's like,
Mm,
and then like you said, this is the structure is more back to the old days with this new season. The
mhm,
cast is definitely closer or more present together, I guess, than season four, definitely. But I just think some of like the absurd jokes or storylines references, and they just don't feel as fresh as they once were. I think part of that is like we've now seen things, other shows are inspired by this, like HBO's double, Veep in Silicon Valley specifically, but tons of other stuff too.
mhm.
Um, and it's just seeing this now, it just doesn't feel as special. And I think there's still cool stuff. Like I thought, like when maybe uh, pretending to be an old person, like getting the benefits of that senior community she was in, like
Yeah.
that was really well done. That was funny. But then stuff like
Mhm.
Job and like his sexuality like comes in and out of it. I just feel like they never really committed to using him well. I don't know. Um, and
Although
also
I do have to.
all the Trump references for Portia
Mm,
de Rossi's character. Like I mean, literally her campaign sign is in the same font and color scheme
yeah.
as the Trump signs and stuff. But like and like obviously a big storyline is them building a border wall for the southern border with
Mhm.
Mexico, and it just felt like it was, I guess, too late because the show's technically taking place in 2016. But I don't know. I guess seeing Trumpian people, which is what the
Mhm.
show is always lampooning from the start, seeing the blues now just wasn't as entertaining to me in a post Succession world. I guess I don't know. Um, yeah, it just I wanted to be funnier. I just felt like it was just too inconsistent with the writing this time around.
Yeah, I do want to say Job's sexuality. I didn't mind that as much. I do feel like they struggled to commit to it fully at times. But that the moment when he goes into the closet converters and just tells his entire story about his hookup with Tony Wonder was maybe the funniest moment of the entire season. Just like seeing him sitting down talking to these guys that just redo closets and like spilling his whole thing, and then he has to buy the company to keep them quiet. Just hysterical. Such a great idea. Jessica Walter. I also felt was a little underutilized. Lucille in the first three seasons is like one of the sharpest, most cutting, and funniest characters I can really remember from TV. I mean, the memes and the gifs made about Lucille are like
Yep.
legendary, and I really feel like she wasn't given as much to work with, and she almost just felt more of a piece to the story about George Senior and Oscar than anything, and I feel like that's really underserving such an awesome character.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it also comes off the heels of all the Jeffrey Tambor stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get kicked off Transparent, and then it coming back up when they were doing press for the first half of season five last year, and Hale and Bateman, they all kind of like quickly like defended Tambor in like kind of like a weird way, like dismissing the the abuse that he laid on Jessica Walter, and it just seemed like they everyone involved really fumbled how that went.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some people in general are just kind of have that a bad taste in terms of even watching Jeffrey Tambor be so present. We
Yep.
mentioned movies like last year, like Death of Stalin. He's in that. It's not a distraction per se, but I think when the Arrested Development team and cast is so involved in like the issue, um, it also feels like it's just coming at a bad time.
How did you feel about Michael Sarah in this?
It just reminds me again that I wish he was in more stuff. Like I
Yeah.
know he does a lot of like low key comedy stuff and like theater stuff, but like I just wish he was like more active in the mainstream because I love his comedic timing. I always have, but it also feels like he and Shawkwat, they've definitely like just kind of grown past these roles, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as part of the Bluth family. And like Jason
Yep.
Bateman, I feel like he can come in and out of this role fine. And even Will
Yeah.
Arnett, I suppose, too. And I think it's actually really refreshing to see David Cross come back and do this too. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, Sarah and Shaqua, I just felt like they're just, I don't know, not given as much as they usually can. So I mean, it's funny,
Yeah.
but like the whole thing with fake block was a really important storyline in this season, and there was really Michael's real uh, involvement was connected to it as well. I just don't know if it again was written well enough to be as an integral to the plot as it was, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think the writing lacked in this season, even though it's still amazing how they're able to intertwine so many things and come up with such ridiculous scenarios. I don't know. Any other thoughts on Arrested Development season 5?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind if they just let it die here, to be honest.
Mm,
There's been no word as of yet if there's going to be a sixth season. Have a hard time imagining they would get both Tambor and Walter to both return.
yeah,
Um, so I think the odds of it are not likely in general. Um, but yeah, it's just I think the time's come. You know, comedy on TV has evolved since then, and we have similar shows like Succession. So I think it's okay to let the show die, but you know, I'd rather that happen than it just keep having these diminishing returns and get away from the greatness of the last decade. You know.
yeah, yeah. I don't see them making another season, but you never know. Would have said that probably what 7 years ago when Netflix put it back, and then Netflix revived it anyway. So you never know what's going to happen with Netflix.